You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
Hey, folks. Welcome to the Beans and Dice podcast, Thursday night live call-in show. I'm Carlos.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Wade. And with us tonight is a special guest, Jamie Brown, designer of Amiibunnies, a game that I got to demo with my wife and kid at Dice Tower East this past year. So we're happy to have you on the show to join us and talk about your game.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Jamie.
Yeah.
All right, so Jamie, we like to start the show off by kind of establishing your gamer cred, letting you tell the folks at home about why and how you're a part of this gaming community. So, Jamie, are you now or have you ever been a gamer?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My entire life. So I started off on the Atari 2600 and the Commodore 64. Both of my parents worked for computer companies back in the day, and they were very much aware that it was going to become the future. So I had a computer in my room my entire life, long before it was normal.
Nice.
My computer monitor was my TV as well, and so I played Snake and all those old games on the computer. I had all those old games on my Atari. I loved going to the arcades. I had a Nintendo in 1985. So yeah, every step along the way.
So at what point did you get into board gaming also?
So modern board gaming was not really until the pandemic. We had gotten to a point where we were playing some games online, and we had a small community that we were playing with. And then when the pandemic happened, it was like, well, now we're going to be spending a lot more time online. And I'm sort of the leader of the group, if you can say that. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to look on Tabletop Simulator. I'm going to research a bunch of games for us to play. I'm also a programmer, so I went and programmed a little application for us. So every night when we're going to play, I select the people who are with us, and I randomize the games. Because I don't know how it is with you guys. When you go to sit down and play a game, you look at your shelf and you're like, wow, that's a lot of games. What do you want to play? I'll play whatever. What do you want to play? Well, whatever. Right? So
it's like the Netflix night with wifey, right? Where it's 8 o'clock and you're like, hey, let's watch a movie.
9 o'clock.
And you're still scrolling through Netflix trying to decide what to watch.
Yeah. I just want to say, whatever application that is, you need to copyright it and publish it, because I swear to God, every game day, we have Nick Oben, a friend of the show, hopefully he calls in tonight too, but he got in the habit of I'll just sit down and play. I'm just going to play. He would just grab a game, because we would spend 30 minutes talking about what game do we want to play. And it's well, if you add up the amount of times in a game day you spend talking about what game to play, you could have played a whole nother game. Right. So
right.
Ooh, see,
the way my application works.
Yeah.
If you rank
people that are playing,
you can rank and weight the folks depending on their win-loss ratio. So people who win more get more weighting, and they can put in their batch of games that they desire.
Yeah.
So then when it randomizes, it gives more weight to, I don't know.
You're making this
well,
work.
it doesn't randomize.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's too hard. Doing it wrong.
What we do
cool.
is we split all the games into the number of players that are available, right? So Sterngard is actually one of the people who plays with us.
Nice.
So he's well familiar with our process.
It says better and safer than just tossing a dart and playing what it hits.
Yeah. So we have the entire library, and it's split into how many players can play each game. So, if we've got 3 players that night, we just pick those 3, and only 3-player games, or games that play 3 players, will appear on the list. Then I hit shuffle, and it will sort all the games into buckets. So it'll say Group A, Group B, Group C, and Group D, and it puts all of the available games in those groups. And then it will pick 2 people. One person has to pick the group, then one person has to pick a game from that group. So
I love it.
I split, you choose.
Yeah,
sort of, yeah.
Kind of. Yeah, a little bit. I
Yeah.
like it. That's Rob's favorite mechanism.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Gamifying the game selection process, but it makes it go faster.
It goes so much faster. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it.
So yeah, if you're interested in that, hit me up afterwards, and I can send you the executable. It's pretty small, and it's designed for Tabletop Simulator, but you might be able to work it out.
Import your BGG collection or something.
Yeah,
from it.
BGG stuff. Yeah.
But I can't
You were
tell you-
saying this all happened post-COVID or during COVID?
It was during COVID. So we've been playing games on Wednesdays pretty regularly. But when the pandemic happened, there was just more people interested. And so we just ended up getting a lot of people. And people dropped out over time, but we had a core of people that have been playing pretty much every Wednesday for 3 solid years now. Or I guess 4 solid years now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, time has flying.
Time flies.
It does.
we were talking about that.
That fascinates me because like I think that is like you think of all like the cool things you buy as gamers, like the game mats or like the game bag or the shelving or the lighting or the table, and then like I can't quantify the amount of time wasted in my 20 years of 24 years of board gaming where it's like we sit around talking about what game to play for 30 minutes every time. Just so annoying. Yeah, that's amazing.
And
my wife is
the way that
smart.
my wife and I
Rob can
do
see
it.
it. Rob can see a stack of games, right? So my wife will take games that she desires to play. She'll put them in a stack, and then she'll let me pick from that stack. She's like, here are the games I desire to play. You can choose any one of them. So it's almost like your group. One person picks a group of games, and the other person picks out the final one.
That's cool.
Yeah. Between my wife and I, we have like a take turn system. So on one day of the week, it's yours, and the next day it's mine. And so if on our game day, it's her day, she has to pick the game. And if it's my day, then I have to pick the game. And it just works out because then I don't have to think about it. And, we just pick something and go, whatever you feel like that day.
I was gonna say I got the randomizer for the first player. You touch my phone and it picks first player, so that helps a little bit. But I never thought about the randomizer for the games. So yeah,
I like it.
Good idea.
There you go, folks. You can find him on his website. Wayne, how do you pronounce it?
Amoebunnies.
I'm trying, brother.
Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't get over that hump. Yeah.
English is not my first language. I'm gonna put it up on the screen here. So Jamie gets into gaming, pre-COVID, and then really gets into the modern day gaming hardcore during COVID, and then you have a desire to create, and that leads us to how you met Wayne. Wayne met you at Dice Tower East. You were demoing Emmy Bunnies.
Bunnies, close. Yeah,
close. Okay. Getting there.
Getting closer. Getting closer.
And introduce us to Bunnies.
Yeah, so Bunnies was a brainchild of my artist partner, Darcy. One day she was just sketching in her art pad and came up with these little gelatinous bunny creature things. At the time, they didn't have any color. They were just white. They could range from very tiny to very, very large. And she just thought they were cute. And at the time, I was trying to develop a mobile game. And I was like, hey, let's work together. You doing art, me doing programming, we can make a team, right? And this was in 2011.
Oh, wow.
And so I started on an application, and I quickly found out that my first idea was terrible. The mechanic was interesting, but it didn't really fit with the characters themselves. And this was the era of like Candy Crush, right? All those really bright color match 3 things.
Yeah.
And so I said, let's try something along those lines. And so I said, hey, Darcy, can you make 7 of these of different colors? And that's how the characters got created. So she made wonderful little characters with great personality. Then I did a bunch of studying on the names. So each name is a different color word in a different language. So example, violet is an English word for purple, but Midori is Japanese for green, Cam is Vietnamese for orange, etc.
Cool.
And so the characters were created that way. And it was just the bunnies would drop from the middle. And instead of making 3 in a row, you would have to make 4 in a square. And that's a screenshot from that right there. When you got 4 in a square, the bunny would grow bigger, which is what you can see in that middle picture that's black and white. And then if you clicked on one that had been grown, it would pop. And so that's how you would clear them from the board.
Grow them, then stack them and match them to grow them. And then once they're grown, pop them to move other things?
Yeah, to clear the board. And so this brown one was the bad guy. We called him Harumph at the time.
Nice.
And he would come in with 3 hit points. Every time you cleared something that was adjacent to him, he would take a damage. So you'd have to clear 3 things next to him in order to get him. We had about 15 or so levels designed at the time, but I happened to get a job in the gaming industry. And the company that I worked for was like, you can't develop games independently while you're working here.
Yeah.
So I had to put that on hiatus. So I guess now, fast forward 6 years. It's 2017. I'm no longer working with that company. I decided to start streaming. And I asked Darcy, can I use these creatures as the theme for my channel? And she agreed to it. So she made this this overlay for me. And so I played a lot of Dead by Daylight. So it didn't really match the theme of the channel so much, but and I had this automated bunnies dropping from the right side of the screen during the whole stream. So it would get taller as the night went on. But this is actually where Board Game Wednesday started, because I would play a DVD on Thursday and Tuesday and Thursday. I would have board games with the community that the viewers could join me on Wednesdays, and I did Storytime Monday, where I'd play single-player story games, and we would go through that way. So I did this for about 9 months before I kind of burnt out on it, and I moved on. And then from that, when the pandemic hit, we decided to revive Wednesday board game night. My parents had been well aware of these characters for a decade at this point, and they were like, you have to do something with these characters. They're awesome characters. So we tried to take some time to do like a children's book, but while Darcy, the artist, is very capable of illustrating a children's book, I am not a writer. So that wasn't really a reasonable goal. So I said, I'm going to take a weekend. I have kind of an idea for a board game based on games that I've been trying to bring to our table that I don't fit. Let me see if I can make one that would fit this niche, that would really fit our style of game. And after a weekend, I had basically the mechanics for an early prototype. So that's how Bunnies came to be. And then over the course of a couple of years, we hashed it all out.
Nice. Tell us, I guess, a little bit about the gameplay. So how does the game work?
So it's an asymmetrical game for 2 to 6 players. So if you're not familiar with what that means, it's basically that every character has its own unique objective and way that it moves. So Roy, for example, his movement is the easiest in the game. He just moves 5 spaces every turn, straightforward. His objective is he's got 12 of these little flower tokens that are spread around the board. When he gets to one of those, he'll play a card matching the color of his space to flip it over. 6 of those flower tokens are going to have an animal on the side. There are 6 animal spaces around the outside of the board that he has to deliver those flowers to. 6 of his other tokens are different power-ups that will help him get stronger as the game progresses. And then the other characters are completely different movement, different objective, different special abilities. And so basically it was an idea to have a lot of replayability, bring out the flavor and personality of all the characters, because we really wanted a game that we could play a lot. And it's something that we've been able to play basically multiple times every week for years.
Okay. Well, I don't know how you feel about comparisons, because I know some designers love them and some designers hate them. But so I'm hearing the asymmetry as far as the goals, as far as what you do, your powers. It's reminding me a little bit of Root. So I'm assuming you're familiar with Root.
Yes, we typically do describe it as a Root light, and exactly that was the impetus of it all, because I was like, oh, Root sounds interesting. It's cute. Let me bring it to my table. So I went and learned all about Root, and I was like, this isn't going to work for my table.
Yeah, it looks cute,
A little complicated.
but then it punches you in the face.
Exactly.
It's too complicated. I would spend the entire night just explaining the rules.
Yep.
And then we wouldn't get to play. Then the rest of the night would also be me trying to make sure that everybody is playing their character both legally and
right,
effectively.
as the game zealot, Right, because that's who I was. That's how I got Rob into this. You self-described, Jamie. You were the zealot who loved gaming and then brought folks in. It becomes on you the onus to ensure the games are taught, that they're played accurately. Nobody else has to read the rules. I do all that work for you. You just show up, I teach you the game. In a game like Root, that would take so much energy to ensure that everyone else is playing their characters accurately.
And not only legally, but also efficiently to the point where they would be enjoying it. Because a lot of people would pick up the Eerie and be like, this sounds fun. And then 2 turns in, they turmoil. And then 2 more turns, they turmoil. And it's like, I don't understand what I'm doing. And that's not an enjoyable experience. Now, Root is a fantastic game, but it takes patience to get into. Yeah. And so I wanted one that had a lower barrier to entry where people could get into it a lot faster. The game would be faster to play. And also the other thing about our particular table is we aren't very cutthroat players. We don't like to be mean to each other. And the whole thing about Root is if I want to win as the Eerie, I have to kill the cats. If I want to win as the Woodland Alliance, I have to destroy everybody. And so we wanted to have characters that were mutually beneficial, and we wanted the characters that were actually mean to not be so mean that when they're winning, it doesn't ruin the fun of other players at the table. So we've got our 6 base characters here. We like to say that 3 are mean characters and 3 are nice characters. For example, the yellow character is a nice character. Her objective is to hide presents around the board. At the end of the game, there'll be tons of her little yellow cubes everywhere. If another player lands on one of her cubes, they can give the yellow player a card and then open the present. She has a special unique deck that has a bunch of gifts in it. And so if you take one of her presents, you get to draw one of the cards from her deck, and then you get something cool for it. So the yellow player gets a card, and then you get a special bonus that's a little random, but it's almost always more valuable than the cards you gave away. Whereas,
I'm sorry, I was gonna say I really like that because it was. I remember, I think my wife played that character, and it was, you're like, well, I don't want to open up her presents because of her presents, I'm helping her win, but the present was so worth it. I was like, well, it's a good trade off because I'm giving her towards her end game goal of her character, but that bonus power ability card is so beneficial to me. I have to do it, right? It's like I want to present. There were times I remember, like even my son went to her space to get the present because it was worthwhile. So that was kind of cool. I like that.
And then our mean characters, I would say sort of the meanest one is the orange guy. So Cam, his story is that he's the larger one. So if you saw the box cover, he's a lot bigger than the rest of them. But when he landed on the ground, he splashed everywhere. So he starts the game in 12 little pieces all around the board. And his objective is to get back together again. So as he's building himself back together, he can get stacks of 3, 4, 5. When he gets to stack size of 4 or more on a space, he starts blocking that space. So other players can't enter that space unless they give him a card. If they give him a card, then he'll kind of scoot over and let that player onto the space. So it's mean in that he can block the space, but it's not prohibitive that there's no way around it.
Cool. Another comparison. Again, I'm throwing these out there, but My Little Scythe. Have you played that one?
I haven't played that one, but I'm aware of it. And I do like that it's basically an easier version of Scythe to help you get into it. And I have heard the comparison before, but I don't have the direct. I haven't played regular Scythe either. That was a little heavier than my table would like.
Yeah, been a while since I played My Little Scythe. It was right after it came out, but I know there was a mechanism in that you, as anybody who's played Scythe before knows, you're placing the stars on the different types of objectives, and you have to place, I think it's 5 or 6 star. I think it triggers the end of the game or something.
I believe so. I think it's 6 like
stars. But in My Little Scythe, one of the things you can do to get a star is you can give
those resources, the Apple resources.
The Apple resources to another player, and by just gifting them those, I mean, it's beneficial to both because then you can complete one of the objectives that you're trying to get to the end game. But then it helps them because that gives them resources that they can spend to maybe do something else, another objective that they're trying to complete.
It's effectively the popularity track.
That's it.
From Scythe.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
But in Scythe Junior or My First Scythe or My Little Scythe,
there you go. Yeah.
It's giving away resources in order to gain that popularity. It's very friendly.
Yeah. They gave me a little feel of that as in what you were explaining there. But yep,
I was feeling it. You said it. I was feeling it.
Were you thinking it too? Yeah. All right. Cool.
So I'll just warn you right here that these pictures are from our previous demo. This is the one that you played, Wayne.
Right. Yeah.
However, our review copies have come in. We've shipped them out to content creators. So this is all old art.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we learned from this particular copy was that all of our art looked a lot basic. It looked like it was a kid's game in that it had very bright colors and very basic shapes. And so we've redesigned the board to be less Candyland and more Flamecraft. So that's how you got that new banner with those softer colors and that more pastel watercolor appearance. So we're hoping that it's more approachable now than it was before, because we did have a lot of people take a look at this and then say, oh, that looks like it's, for young kids, and maybe I don't have young kids, or I'm not interested in the kids game, and they walk on. So we wanted to not have that happen as much, but cute stuff and bright colors still makes people think it's a kids game, but we're trying our best to.
So like that family weight, like, kids can play it, but adults can play it and have fun. That's an issue. Like, so that brings me to a good question is, so as I'm always fascinated by the development and design of games a little bit, just learning more about it. Who do you go to get like that? Even that prototype, right? Well done. It was beautifully done. Like, how do you find a company that's going to develop that prototype? They, not so much cost, but how do you get them to make that first initial prototype? And then you go, no, we're going to scrap all this and start over fresh. Like, how does that process work? Can you
Well, this is our first game, so we're learning as much as everybody else is. The thing for us was trying to find easy resources at the beginning. So I did all of my development through Tabletop Simulator first. We had a lot of prototypes that were done there first. We had lots of art changes and board structure changes and mechanics changes that were iterated on there before we ever made any physical copy. When we got it to a state where I needed people other than my playtesting group to play it, that's when I went and did some research on some places that could make one. I found a company called Board Game Maker, which lets you quickly put together basic prototypes. They will do larger runs, but I don't think they're generally where you want to go for large scale production runs, but they have been really good for prototyping. So I went and got our first game there, and I brought it to a family party and had some relatives play it. And I got a lot of comments where I was going to placate you after playing the game and just tell you that it was good, but I actually enjoyed it. I was like, nice. Great.
I don't know how to take that.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
But I guess that's better than you just saying it was good. So now I know that it's genuine, or at least you're.
That's like when someone tells me, like, Carlos, are you losing weight? You're looking great. I'm like, no. Was I like a horrible slob before today? Like what? Maybe. Well, let me ask. I want to get a little deeper into that because I'm curious. Those game maker spaces where they can make a game for you, like print cards, print stuff for you. Like, are you looking at like a Gloomhaven level cost, like $100-some, or are you looking at like an all in for like Too Many Bones, $1,000 just to kind of be able to print like one game? Like where would that? You don't have to give out specific details.
Yeah. Well, that's always going to depend on the complexity of your game, and the problem with Amiibunnies is there are a lot of different components. Now we don't go to the level of miniatures and that kind of thing. We tried to keep our components simple as we could, but with 6 different unique characters, there's just a lot of different things going on. So the first prototype I had cost $150 for one unit.
Not too horrible.
Yeah, not too bad.
I will say that, not too horrible. I've spent more than that on some worse games.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I understood going in that this was a one-time, and the more copies you get, the cheaper the price goes. So that was just the one copy to, like I said, bring to a couple events, see if people like it, see how tactily it feels compared to, because playing a game on Tabletop Simulator is a lot different than playing it in person. I have my Tabletop Simulator version scripted with setup. So you just click on the character that you want to play. It brings out your board.
That's huge.
When I hit start, it pops everything onto the board for you, picks the first player, draws you your cards. When you hit end turn, it draws a card for you, passes the turn to the next person. So it takes care of everything but
that's going to be a big difference for you in the feel of the game when you put it on paper. We talk about that when we learn games in BGA, and then we get them to the table for the first time, and we're like, this feels so different because of either setup or
BGA
component manipulation.
Counts all the things.
As an example, Earth. Oh, it's so awesome on BGA, but when you play it in person and you're knocking over all those little tree tokens, right? You're like, oh, this is horrible. This is too difficult. So it's smart to get that actual physical copy to really see, do I feel like I feel when I play it online? Yeah,
and it's interesting because both mediums have very different problems. Because my wife and I love to play Eldritch Horror, and that's a big beefy game. But every time we want to play, we have to shuffle like 15 decks of cards. And we bought all the expansions. So the item deck is about this big with mini cards. And it's so painful to
topples
shuffle.
Over.
It's not fun. And like you spend 30 minutes setting up the game to play for 2 hours. And you just, it's frustrating. But we love the game so much. We played it forever and ever. But then we tried to bring it to some friends on Tabletop Simulator, and it takes care of all the shuffling for you. Great. But the cards are illegible because they're so tiny, and you can't just bring them up to your face. And like all the components are all over the place, and you had a setup on your table that made sense for you that is now out the window. And so, it was a lot different of an experience. While it made some things better, it made some things worse.
Yeah, definitely trade-offs between the two.
Now, Jamie, we are going to open up the phone lines here in just a few moments, but before we open up the phone lines to the folks at home, let the folks at home know if they're interested in supporting or following what you got going on, where can they do this? How best can the folks at home connect with Ami Bunnies?
Ami Bunnies.
Ami Bunnies.
Ami Bunnies.
Ami Bunnies.
Ami Bunnies.
The best way to think about it is they're amoeba bunnies. So say amoeba bunnies, but then remove one of the buzz. So amoebunnies.
The way to follow us is to just go to amoebunnies.com. And that's AMOEBUNNIES. And that will take you to our webpage, and that will bring you to a link that you can go to our page that will get you on our email list. And then from there, you have an option where we're going to be hopefully kickstarting within a month or sometime next month. But we have an option right now where if you put $1 down as a sort of commitment to back us, but it is refundable in case you change your mind. If you choose to do that, we will give you a custom set of upgraded character cards included in your game.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, I think Underdog Games did that with the Trekking the World. If you gave them $1 pledge ahead of time to say like, when you go live, I'm going to back it. You got that. I like that as far as like a good gauge as like, well, where are we with how many backers we think we're going to get,
Yeah, it's really important for us because we're kind of trying to figure out if we'll be able to fund or not. Because, we're independent developers. We don't have a lot of marketing weight out there. People don't know who we are. They've never heard about us. So we're trying to get ourselves out there. And we have to be successful this run or, it's just a failed project. And it would hurt us because we put so much time and effort into it. So we're trying our best. But those are the numbers that we're relying on to know whether or not we're ready. So it does help us to find people who are really interested in our characters and our game and our experience.
Very cool. All right. Well, let's see who else is interested in this conversation. We're going to open up the phone lines. 813-618-7099 is the number. This is a live call-in show. where we talk about board games or anything geeky in the hobby or hobby adjacent, any geekiness that you're into. If you call in 813-618-7099, the show is yours for the next 10 minutes. The show will be yours. So for all you folks at home, 813-618-7099 is the number. Call in. We're talking to Jamie Brown with Emmy Bunnies. I think the name of the company is Wrong Cauldron. Did I get that right? Wrong Cauldron Games?
Yes.
A Wrong Cauldron game.
There you go, wrong color.
Yes.
Yep. Amy Bunnies.
Ami?
Ami
Ami bunnies. Ami bunnies.
So the way that my artist likes to try and tell people is say gummy bunnies without the G.
Okay.
Yeah, it works.
Ami bunnies.
English is still not my first language.
He's trying. He's trying. He's struggling.
But there's a long. So I'm originally from New York, so every now and then my New York accent comes out. So when I have an idea, it comes out.
Oh, no.
You know,
I'm from the Boston area, so my dad did the same thing.
yeah. And then Carlos, you know, he likes.
Don't ask me to say the other word for miniatures.
figures. He doesn't like figures. in the game, so
Figures.
everyone, so we always kind of make fun of that. So, just circling back, you got that first prototype and you played it, and now you create 3 or 4 more of it. And, you know, so they already have the files; they can recreate the game you printed. But now you've pivoted and you've gone, okay, we have this first thing, but we like the art, but people think it's too kiddie or too kids game like, so we need to kind of morph it. How does that process work where you go back to that publisher and say, okay, all these files, scrap it, start fresh? Is there like an additional charge for them to retool, or they're kind of ready for that pivoting and then they can create this new one pretty quickly? Or how long does that take as far as you working with this the game crafter to build your prototypes?
So our story specifically is a little different than that. So the first prototype that we had was actually before the one that you played. That one was, like I said, a single copy, and that was the only one that was ever made, and it was through the Board Game Maker. Our second prototype, we actually went to a real manufacturer. We went to Long Pack Games, which is the maker of Everdell and a bunch of other really well-known games. And that's they were really impressive for us. Their quality was great, but we ordered 6 copies from them. So those were also about as expensive, but we had higher quality things. We had, you know, top tier manufacturer. And those are what we used from our first convention, which was BGG Spring 2023 until Gen Con 24. And then we got our next copies. So as far as that went, we went through a great process. Longpack was very responsive. They were great. Our issue only is with Longpack that their minimum order for production run is 1,500 units. So we aren't sure that we'll be able to garner that much attention. We'd love it if we could, but we had to start looking for what if we can't. And so we started shopping around for other possible manufacturers. And we found another one that we've been working with more recently. They're the ones that did our newest one. They're Watts Games. They've been great as well, very responsive. And they've been able to also give us a much better deal on our prototypes. So the prototypes that we just sent out were $40 a copy.
Oh, wow.
Big difference. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But we had to get 20 of them. But that worked out because we needed a lot more of them so that we could ship them out to people. Because our last set was just for us to bring on tour. We never gave anybody to anybody else. They were our copies. Now, these ones we gave out to the content creators and we're like, hopefully you'll enjoy the game. You'll give us some good feedback and content, and it's yours to keep if you want, but please send it back if you don't so that we can pass it on to somebody else. And so none of them had files from before. However, our artist, Darcy, is a professional by trade. She's a graphic artist and illustrator by profession. So she was well familiar with the process of creating artwork and delivering it to clients. So it was kind of a reverse situation where we were the client, but still delivering the art. So all it was the manufacturers would provide us with a set of instructions to follow. And she would say, okay, yeah, I know what that means. I know how to do that. I will put this all into that format and ship it up to you. And then they basically look over it, say, okay, your bleeds are a little wrong here, or this cut line is a little off here. You might want to take a look at that. She makes a couple adjustments. And both manufacturers were great to work with, very quick. And the turnaround time was right on schedule.
See, and that's interesting. Like, so you had the benefit of having a professional artist, graphic designer who kind of knows this kind of stuff. Like, if any one of the three idiots here on in the Beans and Dice crew, like, we would never have that expertise, right? So do you think that before you went to a company like that to try to come up with a prototype, you really do need to get like a graphic designer who has experience, or would they work with us to be able to fix art or help with that? Is it?
Let me share a story. Like, I did spend time in the printing industry, in running print shops, and man, I remember the difference when you had a company you were working with or a client you were working with, and it was just like a muggle. Just a muggle. Just like a normal human.
Geeky term, yeah.
It was rough. Like, they would ask for things that didn't make sense, or they would have concerns about colors, and you're like, is your screen calibrated? Like, do you know what a calibrated screen is? Maybe your inkjet HP printer, that red doesn't look right, but that is the correct red. And then it was a complete turnaround when he talked to other professionals in the industry, other artists, people who understood how to look at color palettes and calibrate screens. Like, that's a huge difference just on the business end. Like, I remember those phone calls and the conversations with those clients. It's rough.
Yeah,
absolutely. Her work has been invaluable, both on just the fact that she created the characters in the first place, but like, getting artwork for a game is one of the most challenging steps along the way if you don't have that to begin with. There definitely would be no game if she wasn't on the team already, and that's evidenced, Wayne, from our previous discussion that about the other game.
Yeah,
the artwork is just the hurdle there.
And that's always interesting. Is I listen to a lot of other board game content, and like, you listen to Jamie Stegmaier from Stegmaier Games, and people, and like Bonacor from Stronghold Games, and they say, like, if you're a game designer, don't bring us art. Like, just give us the game with like rudimentary stick figure art, because after we purchase the game from you, we'll hire
people for that.
We got people for that, right? So it's but you're kind of like, because you're independent and you're doing it on your own, you have that unique resource in your partner that has that art background, and like, that's got to be really invaluable, because if you had to go out and find that resource, it's probably pretty hard to really.
It's either hard or it's expensive, because we're working for the equity in our project. Although neither of us are really in it for the money, we're in it because we want to share our characters with the world first. Like, the characters are the main thing. The game is part of that as well. But in like the perfect world, our characters would go beyond just the game. So maybe a cartoon or comic book or something, whatever. But
hey, it worked for kittens.
Exploding Kittens.
Exploding Kittens.
Oh,
like, aren't they getting a show on Netflix?
Probably.
They do. Yeah, it's a Netflix show. Yeah.
Wow.
They're working on a Netflix show.
I hadn't heard that.
It worked for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we love our characters. We think they're fantastic, and we think there is more potential in them. And we're just trying to get people excited about them. Yeah.
Well, let's pause real quick. I'm going to play a voicemail from the end of last week's show. There was a call after the show. Let me play this voicemail. I like getting voicemails.
Did you pre-screen this voicemail?
I just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Pre-screen the voicemail.
Let's see. We got at the end of last week's show, we got a voicemail.
Hey, Carlos and Rob and Wayne. Just saying, hey, it's been a little while since I've called in, but I just want to say keep up the good work. Didn't get a chance to call in tonight. It was too late by the time we got done doing all our stuff. My son and I did another video tonight, and we played a little smash up. I wound up rebuying the old geeky box, a big geeky box. I got it used on Boardlandia, and then came with a whole bunch of expansions in it. So my son and I were having fun playing some Smash Up tonight with different combinations and doing another video. So didn't get a chance to call in, just too late. But thanks for doing the show tonight, and definitely gonna watch it here shortly. So y'all have a good night. Bye bye.
All right. He didn't introduce his name, but we know him as Chris.
Yeah,
Chris out of Austin, Texas.
Austin, yeah, I think it's Austin. Yeah,
That's what I love about this show is we're in Florida and we get to know people from all over the country.
Yep.
Get to understand who they are, how they game, who they game with, learn more about their game group. Chris has he just started like in the last month a little YouTube channel for him and his son called Pop and Tot Games, where him and his son talk about different games they enjoy, different mechanisms. I think they just came out with a video this week. Top 5 hand management games.
that sounds right. Yeah,
I think it was.
I saw it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Top
Yeah.
5 hand management games.
Sounds right. Yep.
Which included games such as Western Legends.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was on the list.
That's a big one. Wow.
That's a nice one.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, Chris, for dropping a voicemail in there. Don't forget, folks, this is a live call-in show. Call in 813-618-7099 is the number. For you folks listening in on the podcast at home after the show, you're welcome to just call in, leave a voicemail. We'll play it on the next episode to let folks know who you are and what you got going on gaming-wise.
As demonstrated, James Odak, Jim popping in the chat there. Hey, Jim, how you doing?
James Odak in the chat. We did have some chats in here. Let's pop in. We've got Sterngard. Sterngard says helps that he doesn't let us testers out of the basement.
you get a built-in tester group there. That's always a nice thing. Yeah.
I mean, they've been willingly staying in the basement for 3 years, which we've highly appreciated. Their feedback has been critical as well, and we've thanked them by putting them as testers in our rule book.
Nice.
That's always cool.
Yep.
We don't know about basements in Florida, so we can escape readily.
Attic maybe, flowers.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Something.
Maybe an indoor pool.
Yeah.
DM says, I loved playing this with your group. Kind and fun. This game is so cute. I love how unique it is. It's easy to learn when you watch.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, I think it was, when I demoed it at Dice Tower, I think it was Saturday, or maybe it was definitely Saturday. My wife and I and my son, we went through the dealer room, and then we worked our way through the demo tables, and we sat down, and immediately, granted the artwork is changing, but immediately we were like, my wife and kid were like, this looks fun, this looks cute, let's sit down and play. And then, as we're learning, I'm like, it's all I went like Rob immediately, this is like Root Light. It's like it's asymmetric powers, and you have the board, and you're trying to control certain areas of the board and move things around. And it was our fourth player was someone that he had demoed it a few times, and he was trying to demo each of the characters, right? So he was going through each of the characters, and he was very excited about the game. And it was good. So we played it with a gentleman who'd played it 3 or 4 times already, probably that weekend, because he was working his way through all the characters. And then we had 3 new players, and there's me, who's a very experienced gamer, my wife, who's a fairly experienced gamer, and my 10-year-old who's still learning and getting into gaming. We were all able to pick up our characters pretty quickly, grasped it, and it was very close all throughout. Like all 4 of the characters, which I liked, was at the beginning of the game. The other gentleman, I forget his name, he was kind of running away with it, but then quickly my wife with a presence caught up, and then I was the guy who was running around to deliver the flowers and to the different characters. I'm not necessarily saying that right. But Roy, yes, yeah. And then my kid played the Blob. Right, he wanted to play the Blob, the guy that goes around and collecting all the guys. And I don't even remember who won. I think my son won, actually. But it was at any point in the game, I got the feeling that another person was winning. Right, it wasn't like from start to finish. My son was winning. It was he came from behind to win, or he came through at the end to win. So I like that. Like, how many times? And that was a long-winded getting to a question. Is how did you get to the point where one character didn't run away with it each time, or how did you get that balance in there?
Other than 3 years of playtesting, right?
Yeah, I guess probably that too. Yeah, is that really all
it was? Really was. It was logging down at some point, who's winning a lot and why are they winning, and trying to make the adjustments necessary in order to balance it out. For instance, the blue character was winning a lot, so we added an extra token for him to pick up, and then he was still winning a lot, so we removed. So the way he moves is he has to roll a die that randomly determines which path he has to go around. So he's got like the hardest movement in the game. He used to be able to roll that die 3 times per turn, but even with all that, he was still able to win more than his fair share. So we've reduced it to only 2 times. You pick up this character, like the red character can move 5 times however he wants. The blue character gets 2 rolls of a random die. Well, the blue character wins more than the red one does. So, you know, we've done a lot of work trying to balance that out. And then eventually it gets down to a place where you're trying to make very minor changes without throwing the game out of balance. Like our most recent one was the yellow character had 12 presents that she needed to deliver in order to win. We changed it to 14 because we just felt that getting the 11th present, which gives her a bonus, would automatically get her that 12th one. And we wanted a little bit more suspense for her. So maybe the 11th will get her the 12th. Maybe the 11th will get her the 12th and the 13th. But it probably won't get her all 3 unless she has a pretty good turn. And so it just gives her that extra work to do in order to get that down. So we've tried to balance it so everybody takes about the same amount of time to win. And it is the case where most games, most of the other players on the board would have won had they gotten 1 more turn.
Nice. I'm loving to hear about the approachability of the game. I'll tell you straight out, Root, again, I'm going to come back to that Root comparison. Root is a highly regarded game. Tons of people love Root, highly rated on the BGG. I am not a fan of Root. Root is definitely what I would call a lifestyle game. I think a lot of people would agree that to be good at Root, you've got to spend a lot of hours kind of learning the interactions, learning, you know, what you have to do to stop the other one, how you have to set up alliances, you know, what each of the factions is trying to do, what each, you know, what the goals are, the how to maximize what your faction does, you know, what your part of it of the big story is. And I tend to be an experiential gamer. I guess I'm going to kind of explain it that way. We've talked about this a little bit in the past. I don't pick things up very quick. When I play a game for the first time, I usually get creamed, and it's because I just don't think, I don't know if I don't think ahead or I don't think that complex. But as we get more plays in, I think most of the people I game with would say that once I've played a game 3 or 4 times, I'm usually scoring pretty high. I can start optimizing things. I can start seeing the connections, but I have to really kind of experience. And so Root is a game that it turned me off just because I would have had to pour a lot of hours into it, learning how things work, learning how this character or how this group works, what's my path to victory. All right, now how am I trying to stop everybody else? Is this a 2-player game, a 4-player game, all those kinds of things. But it sounds like Me Bunnies is a lot more approachable in that, you know, again, I don't want to call it simplistic, but you know, you've got simpler goals. You know, hey, I've got a pretty easy to understand asymmetrical power. I've got a pretty easy to understand objective of what I need to do to win. And I guess it's going to lead me into, again, another question here, kind of like Wayne's long way around to a question. So as far as a player aid, as far as what other people have at the table to be able to see, is it simple enough that on the first play, I can just explain, hey, this is my objective, this is my power, and you kind of leave it at that? Or does each person have a player aid that kind of is a reminder that, hey, you know, the blue player is doing this, the green player is trying to do that, the yellow player is trying to do that? How's that set up in the game?
So we've tried to make it as accessible as possible for a variety of players because we know that every group is different. Some people are going to have your rules guy that teaches everybody, and some people are going to be like, okay, we're all going to learn independently and then we'll come together and figure it out. But so the rules for this game, I wanted to make it so that, like I said before, you're not spending half the night trying to learn how to play. So the first thing is there's 8 pages to the rule book, but there's only 1 page that matters. You read that page, it tells you the general rules, how the cards work, what the jellies are and how they work, what the general rules are, when your turn is, what you can do on your turn. And it takes care of like the general stuff that people always ask. Can I move more than once? Can I move, take an action, and continue moving? Is there a hand limit? Is there a jelly limit? It just gets that minutia out of the way because it affects everybody the same. But this 1 page here is all that you need to do to get everybody understanding the base of the game.
The game mechanic, sure.
Yeah. After you do that, we have 6 individual rule pages that are one sheet that are folded up. You give that each person the character that they've chosen, and then they read their own character by themselves. So you've got 4 people at the table. They each have their own character. So you just click on any one of those characters. And since this would be folded up, you have both sides of the sheet here. So that would be one side. And then if you scroll down, this would be the other side. This would be the inside. This has all of the rules for Cam. So you would start on the left, find out what your objective is. Cam is split up into 12 pieces. He's trying to get himself back together. In order to get back together, he has to have 2 stacks adjacent to each other. He has to spend 1 movement to move to the space to the other one. And then he has to play a card matching the color of the path between the 2. Then what his movement is for him, it's the larger his stacks are at the beginning of his turn, he'll get more movement. So at the beginning of the game, he's very limited in his movement. As he starts building his stacks, he'll get more and more movement. The game for him becomes a balance of, do I want to have one giant stack walking around the board, which gives me more movement, or do I want to have 2 stacks of 4 where I have less movement, but I can block 2 spaces and have a little bit more board control? So it's just those little decisions like that that I think gives the extra flavor to the game. And then to the right of that is your special abilities. Cam is pretty simple. He's only got 2 special abilities, the block and then the splash. Every time he merges, he can put a splash token on a path. And if a player walks over the splash, they get to draw a card. And it's just that simple. And so if you scroll up a tiny bit, you'll see that there's a complexity rating for each character. So that new players to the game can quickly say, you know, maybe I'm going to play a character based on my favorite color, or maybe, you know, I'm new to this game. Everybody else has kind of played it before. We want to get into the game quickly, and we want to give you a character that's easy to understand. Give them Cam. It takes 5 minutes to understand it. It's not even 5 minutes, 2 minutes to understand them. It's very quick, very easy to get into. Then after everybody's read their own rules, you come back together. And then the way I say to do it is on your turn, you say, okay, my name is Cam. My objective is to get all my tokens back to 1 stack. And then my interaction with other players is if I have a stack of 4 on a space, I block that space. You can give me a card to enter that space. I also put these splash tokens on the board. If you walk over the splash token, I get to draw a card. And so that's all it takes to explain your character. You take your turn, you move on to the next person. They give their objective and their interaction. And you just do that. And you can get into the game pretty quick. And you don't have to spend all that time on the setup and the explanations.
Nice. Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so like in my gaming life right now, there's the hardcore game, like the brass. Like if I'm going to play brass, I'm going to play it with Carlos and Rob, right? The 3 of us will play brass, right? But a lot of my gaming is my wife, my kid, myself, or other people. So you're looking for those games that non-gamers or new gamers or younger gamers can get into, but also still has sort of enough for me who has been playing games forever, right? And that's why I think, you know, we talk about that family weight of game where it's not Root, where I have to play it 17 times to figure out how to play it. But it's also not like Uno, right? It's in that mid-weight as far as there's enough there to kind of trigger my brain, and I'm thinking about how it interacts. And while maybe I've got my character down pretty quickly because I'm a pretty hardcore gamer, I could look at my kid's character. He was playing the Blob, and I'm thinking about how I would have played it or what I would be doing while he's making his decision. So there's kind of like enough of those interactions to make it family weight, but enough to keep people like me involved in the game. Is kind of what I'm thinking.
That's really what we were aiming for. And I was also aiming for a game where you can play it with your son and you don't have to let him win. Mm-hmm. He will definitely be able to beat you on his own without you having to take it easy on him or do anything like that. I designed the game and I barely win it, right? So that's part of the fun, in my opinion, is, you know, there's enough strategy where your decisions matter, but there's enough luck that, you know, sometimes things just don't work out.
And that's a good feeling when your kid beats you. and you did not allow it. It hurts. Like it hurts a little bit, the pride wise, but on the flip, you kind of like shed a tear of joy. Like, that's my boy. That's my boy.
And then they rub it in your face. And
then you're like,
no.
Smack him and put him in a corner.
Now, I want to remind the folks at home, I know we're having great conversation, and we get the feedback from y'all all the time. Whenever there's great conversation, y'all are afraid to interrupt, right? Because you're enjoying the conversation. Please don't be afraid to interrupt.
Yeah.
You call in, the show is yours for 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be on the topic we're on, because we are going to hit all kinds of tangents. Call in, talk to us about what you've been doing gaming-wise. Introduce Jamie and us to your game group. Tell us what games you've been playing lately, what games have you been buying lately, what games have you been eyeing lately that you're looking at and wanting to buy. 813-618-7099 is the number. Live call-in show. For those of you listening afterwards on the podcast or in the YouTubes, call in, leave a voicemail between shows. We'll play it on the next show.
Yep.
Now, Wayne, we're at the the top of the hour, so we're coming up on the top of the hour. I know that this week I wanted to see, because you didn't get to join us last week, to update your top 20 board.
Oh, yeah, dude, I did not even.
Did you prep for that?
We were gonna have you and Michael do it.
I think I did, actually. Yeah, I think I did.
Now, Jamie, what we do here on Beans and Dice is a little different than most shows. We have an organic top 20 board. Now, I'm a pencil paper type of person. The digital world is not my thing.
Wayne, not so much.
Wayne is a digital person. But what we started with is this top 20 board where, as we play games, we put them on the board with these magnetic strips. We write them down and place them where we felt when we played them, how we felt about them at that time compared to other games we've played this year. And as the year goes by, as the year goes on, those games will get pushed down as new games come up. And if you want to move a game on the board, you need to replay the game. So if you played a game and gave it really high marks, because it was just amazing that one day, but then you played it again and felt, you know what, that really wasn't as good as I thought, or it was better than I thought, you can only move it if you played it again. So we've been growing this every month. We're updating our board with that top 20 games last week. If you all go back and watch the episodes from last week, Robert and I updated our board. We had a lot of update. Robert had a lot. No,
you had more than I did. I think you had like 3.
Yeah,
and I had like 1.
But you went to a con too.
Yeah, I went to a con. And
you had a lot of games played.
One on my board. Yeah,
but none of them made it to the board.
No.
Wayne and Mike were not there with us, so they weren't able to update their boards. I'm hoping today Wayne is ready.
Yeah, mine's
ready.
Relatively quick because I didn't have a lot of August. So I work in higher education, Jamie. Just to let you know. So August, not a good month for me for board gaming because it's the first couple of weeks of school and a lot of kids trying to figure out. I do finance for higher education, so not always the best thing. So this is not a top 20 list of all time. It's the top 20 games that I've played this year. As far as games played. So I guess I'll present my screen. I only have 2 new games, so it's going to be a pretty quick run through.
I think Michael will join us next week to update his August list as well. And Jamie, do not be afraid to critique. It is okay to criticize.
Yeah, we criticize all the time.
They do it all the time.
That game's horrible.
Oh, there you go. All right. So anyway, the 2 games that fell off my top 20 are Trekking Through History, which I really love this game.
Dude, you got me to buy it, and now you're dropping it off your list.
I am. Yeah,
I bought it because of you.
I know, but you buy a lot of games because of people. So
everything.
I can't tell you the number of callers that have called into our show and talked about a game, and either Carlos and I are on Amazon buying the game or
before
on a
the
game
show's
store
over.
Before the show's over. But no, I really love Trekking Through History. It's a really fun game. I've played it a ton, and I kind of I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if I like playing it 4-player. 2 and 3 is really good. But no, I
think 4 there'd be too much movement of cards.
Yeah, it can be pretty crazy with the card movement.
Could not plan ahead.
2 is almost not enough. So when I play it 2-player with my son, I'll still at the end of every round we eliminate the last card and rotate every turn. So there is a little bit more card movement. But It's a really good game. I love underdoor games. I've talked about them on the show a ton. The trekking series, Trekking Through the World, Trekking Through History, Trekking National Parks, and Her Story are very. I'm a history guy. I love education. I love taking education in games, and with a 10-year-old, it's great for me. So that one, and then Hegemony also fell off my top 20. I know
I think James Odak just had a heart
I know.
attack. Someone needs to check.
He's in a car. He's in a car driving over to my house. He's gonna knock on my door and hit me. But no, I love Hegemony. It's a great game. But again, it's kind of like a Root type thing, where I don't know if you're familiar with the game, Jamie, but Hegemony is you're playing the 4 classes. Like it's basically
the state.
It's
the
state,
worker class,
the worker class, the middle class,
sure.
and the corporate or the giants, right? Oligarchs. And each person is very asymmetric, and it's really well done how they interact, the tax structure and passing bills and laws and how everything works. So it's a really good game, but it is a game that is like Root. It's going to be hard to get to the table and play on a regular basis. You have to know your faction and know how your faction wins and plays it. So it's just one that I love it, but it's not going to hit my table very often. It's a game I'll play once a year probably, right? So it's on there. So anyway, number 20, and is a new game, is Endangered. That hit my list, and I think it can go higher. I love Endangered. It is I'm a big proponent of it because it is a cooperative game. It is like it's a pandemic-like game. But you are playing either a environmentalist or a TV animal person or an environmentalist lawyer or something. And the whole concept of the game is you're trying to save a species from extinction. And so the game comes with 3 or 4 different species, and there's a bunch of expansions where you can have up to 10 or 12 different animals, the pandas and the condor and the pufferfish and the Great Salt Lakes, the little fish in that's going extinct. And the whole game is you're trying to balance keeping the animal alive on the game board while trying to convince countries through political means to save the species and put money back on and saving them. So it's a really fun game. I enjoy it a lot. I played with my wife a few times the last few weeks. We did the giant panda expansion. We did the condor, and I think the cougar, the jaguar and tapir, which is like a cool one because it's like the jaguar and the tapir have this symbiotic relationship. So you're trying to save both of them from going extinct, because if one goes extinct, the other one's done too. So it's a really, really fun game.
But before we move on to the next game, I want to give an achievement here to Jamie. Jamie, congratulations. We got a comment in the chat. Edmund England says, "Good morning, guys." Edmund is out of Sweden. So, Jamie, you have officially gone international. Achievement to you, Jamie. International.
Yeah. And actually, Edmund, I think, is designing a game himself, too. So
He is.
Oh, great.
So Edmund, Polyomino style cargo shipping game that he got to play at what was the name of the con out there in Europe? Oh,
posted in the chat, I'm sure.
It was it Aircon?
All I remember is all the IKEA bags, which makes sense. He's in Sweden.
Yes. So
back
my
to
number,
Wayne.
Yep, my number 19, White Castle from Devere Games. We've played that.
You're just upset because I destroyed you. That's why you put it that low.
You played it like 17 times. Should be higher. Maybe played more times. Maracaibo. I need to play it again physically so I can move it back on my list. I've been playing it. I've been playing it on BGA like crazy. I love this game.
It's good.
The interaction is really good. It's a sailing game in the Mediterranean, in the Caribbean during the Age of Pirates. Really good game. Same designer as Great Western Trail, right? Alexander Pfister, I think, right? First Rat. Always on my list. Love this game. It is, you are a rat in a junkyard trying to collect junk to build a spaceship and fly to space. And so it's a fun game. Love First Rat. Istanbul, an old game, classic. You're moving around the markets of Istanbul to collect goods and turn those goods into rubies, and you collect rubies to win the game. So it's a really, really fun one. Blood Rage, what was it? The original Eric Lang game, which is number 15 on my list. Number 14, Captain Sonar. It's fallen, guys. This started the top like 3 for me, but I love.
It was number 1.
It was number 1.
Made fun of you.
Yeah,
it was
made
number
fun
1.
of me for it. Yes, made fun of me for it, but it's falling down. But again, we like, for what's good about these lists, Jamie, is when we're making this top 20 list, we think about like our experience playing the game. So Captain Sonar is not nearly like my number 1 game of all time, but when I played it earlier this year, it was with a group of Beans and Dice crew. at Michelle Gallagher, Michelle's house, a friend of ours from the show. And it was just an amazing experience because half of us knew the game, about half of us didn't. And I don't know if you've played Captain Sonar, but there's teams of 4 and you're all on a boat and one person's the captain.
Right. I've seen it played. I haven't played it myself.
It is so enjoyable. It is chaos and it's amazing.
Well, it depends on the captain. Like if the captain has things in order, I have like a 90% win rate.
Yeah, there's always chaos in this game.
There's always chaos.
I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm proud. I got like a 90% win rate.
So like the captain is calling out directions, and then there's a navigator and a comms officer, and like the person who's getting the torpedoes ready.
Weapons
and
expert.
It is like playing Battleship with 8 people, and it's amazing. It's so much fun. So that's why
real time, no turns, real time.
Yes,
right.
It is,
yes.
So it is really fun. So it was really high on my list, and because of
early in the year,
and as I played more games, it's moved down. Yes, Sky Team.
Love
such
great game.
Yeah. Rob and I are in a constant game of it on BGA.
Oh yeah,
like nonstop. We've been playing it all year long. It's just a fantastic game. Really love it. I love that there's a new expansion, and so yeah, Sky Team.
Yeah, it's earned game of the year for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Maglev Metro is a game that I really enjoy. It's building the metro system with robots and people throughout different countries. There's a Japan board, there's a Germany board, there's a New York City board. It's a game that we've always had a lot of fun playing. Pokemon Splendor.
I was hoping it'd be a game about cars because it could be like trains, planes, and automobiles.
I know.
Maglev, Sky Team. We got boats.
Pokemon,
you got cars in here.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
So it's basically Splendor, but it's Pokemon themed, and I love it because the twist of the evolution, playing Splendor and evolving to the second or third level, really enjoyed it. I played this actually for the first time at Dice Tower East, and then immediately imported a copy from Korea. So it was paid to have it shipped. Yeah, Etsy for the win, or eBay for the win. Sorry, it went too high there. Anyway, all right, so leave my Pan Am. Love the game Pan Am. It's the age of flight. It's Pan Am, the golden age of plane development and airline development. I think this is an example of a game. Was Funko Games, right? Funko Games, and
yes,
it was a Target game, and it was like $25-$30, and it is a highly underrated quality board game.
It is.
You could pick it up for $25-$30 at Target for the longest time.
Funko Games, game by Prospero Hall.
Prospero Hall, yep. So fantastic game. Let's Go to Japan. Dice Tower East game. I played it at Dice Tower East. I don't own it yet because I'm going to hope that maybe for Christmas, Santa brings me the nice deluxe copy.
If Mrs. Kruger's listening right now.
Yeah, wink. Sure she is out there. Yeah. So I this year I spent 16 days in Japan with my family. So this game is all about building your trip to Japan and how making it enjoyable going between Tokyo and Kyoto. And I just did all that. So playing the game is like a Zen thing. Like, oh, I did all that. Yeah. Creature Comforts, kids table board games. I love all their games. I think we own 3 or 4.
For the folks at home, we're at number 8 right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, number 8. Creature Comforts. I always forget that kind of stuff. Sorry. Creature Comforts, kids table board games. I really enjoy their games because similar to the Me Bunnies, it's a game that has enough for me as a gamer, but also has my kid can play. And so at Dice Tower, we played 3 or 4 different versions of the kids table board games. I own them all now. And then actually, hopefully we'll talk about your experience at Gen Con in a few minutes. But Gen Con, they released a new game called Capybaras, which is they're capybaras running a coffee shop. And my kid is like all kids are about capybaras now, apparently. I don't know what it is. Like they all love capybaras. So that's under my kid's Christmas tree in a couple months because I got it already. And number 7, my next new game.
Oh wow!
My number 2, wow. my second new game on my list, The Quacks of Quedlinburg. Play this. A friend of ours from Portland was in town a couple weeks ago and wanted to play some board games. And I said, all right, I'm just setting this up because my wife's been wanting to play it. And I think we played like 3 or 4 times in this back.
Isn't it fun?
Back. Yeah, we played it once. And my wife and our friend Max, she was like, "Can we just play this again?" I was like, "What do we want to play next?" And she's like, "Can we just do this one again?" Okay, great. We played it again, and then my wife's like, "Why don't we just do this one again?" And so we played it 4 times in one night. It was just bam, changing out spells, whatever. And really fun game, really enjoyable. it definitely hits out, and I love having all the expansions because we can kind of mix and match all the different spell books. And then thank you for Carlos for because Carlos upgraded his copy of Quacks to the Geek Up bits. I got all of his coin capsules, and so having them all in the coin capsules really helped. The tactile
Upgrading those
nature.
bags, you upgrade those bags, and then you get to those coin capsules, and it's like that clackety clack inside the bag just feels so
nice.
good.
So good. Yep. I'll run through the next one. Lords of Waterdeep, always a classic. Love this game. I definitely am playing that this month, so it's probably going to move up even higher. Number 5, Mansions of Madness. Like you guys, I think Jamie, you said you and your wife play Arkham Horror, right?
Eldritch Horror.
Eldritch Horror. So similar, Mansions of Madness. My wife and I play this game all the time. We love the app and the music and just the interactive nature of it. So we crank through Mansions of Madness a lot. Lost Ruins of Arnak at number 4. Classic Indiana Jones. I play this game 3 or 4 times this year, and every time I put on that either an Indiana Jones movie or the soundtrack, and it's just
still have the co-op expansion and Shrink. I gotta get this one to the table.
That's gotta get it's on my list. Number 3, Village, which is an older game. Marcus and Inka Brandt won the Kinderspiel des Jahres, I think, about 8 or 9 years ago. Really unique worker placement Euro game with a unique mechanism where as you do certain actions in your village, you have to age your meeples, and every time you cross midnight, a meeple will pass away. And how your meeples pass away matters because then there's the annals of the village, which is the scorebook, and where they die. This was a journeyman blacksmith. He died here. He goes here, and that scores X amount of victory points. So it's kind of like you have to manage how much time you're spending with your workers to when they kind of pass away and move on. So yeah, Village. That's my number 3. Number 2, Manhattan Project Energy Empire. We've talked about this game on the show a bunch.
Yeah.
Fantastic game,
So
great
good.
worker placement game. And then my number 1 is Dune Imperium.
Woo!
Yeah.
Right where it should be.
Right where it should be. Yeah.
You won Jim back. James Odak is back. He's happy with you now.
He's happy. Yes, he's happy. I had that there. So that's my top 20 updated. I didn't play more than 10 or 12 games in the month of August, so it was kind of rough getting games in there. But yeah, so
Well, you beat us, unfortunately. I think we had 8 or something.
Yeah, it was a very small amount of games,
Yeah.
but I'm working on it this month. This month I'm already cracking out some games.
Ooh, all right.
Yep. So yeah. that'd
So
be
I
good.
have a question for you guys. If
Yeah.
that's...
Sure,
Wow.
please. Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
So a lot of times I see people such as yourselves, and the games that you seem to enjoy the most are those really big chunky games like Dune Imperium, right? Whereas my game is obviously not that. How do you compare these different styles? Like, do you often want to play Dune, but you can't, and then you settle for something less? Or do you like a lot of the lower games and you play them a lot, and then sometimes you treat yourself to a bigger game? Like, how does that work for you?
So I'll jump in first then. I think it balances out, right? So I know I love crunchy big games. If I could play Brass in a day, if I could do Brass to Castles of Burgundy to Dune Imperium to whatever, that's a great game day for me. But I know that is a very small group of people, right? My friends that we could do that with. There's also the question of a lot of I could play those 3 games if I had a 7 or 8 hour game day, right? So there's a balance of, do I want to play a 2 or 3 hour game or 3 1-hour games? And then there's my family. Most of my gaming now is with my family. It's with my wife, my kid. And so I know that I can't play Dune Imperium or Brass with my wife and kid, right? So, and that's why I talk about the kids' table board games and Underdog Games, where Underdog Games has games that are meaty enough for me to be intrigued with, but has this educational aspect to it, where I'm learning about the national parks, or learning about history, or learning about her story. And that's great for my kid, whatever. And then the kids' table board games with Creature Comforts and Maple Valley, where it's enough of a gameplay for me, but it's cutesy. The artwork is good, and the gameplay is easy enough for my kid to grasp, or wife to grasp. And that's where I think I really was grabbing onto your game, is it's a game where I feel like I can. It's only an hour, right? Probably 45 minutes to an hour. It's a fast playing game for me that keeps me entertained enough, but I know my family can grasp it. So I always am trying to balance those, right? So in a perfect world, I don't know. I wouldn't always play those heavy games because I also enjoy light games too. But it's sort of, I'm trying to balance how many times I play Dune Imperium to how many times I play Azul, right, or lighter games. So yeah, I'm always looking for those balance, because I don't. There are some people in our group that only play heavy games, and I'm like, after I play a 3-hour game, I need a break. Like I can't just do 3 hour. So anyway, that's, I guess, my answer.
Okay.
Well, I've got a. What's good for me is, although Wayne has one child and will run through these the gamut of the children's games into adolescent games, into young adult and adult games, teenager and adult games. I have 5 kids that run the gamut from 10 months to 21 years old. So I'm going to get to run the cycle over and over again. So games that I can play with an 8 and 9-year-old are games that I enjoy, I buy, and I seek, because I'll have the opportunity to play with them with my kids. I've had the opportunity to play with my kids, and they stay in my shelf. Catan Jr., My First Ticket to Ride, etc., My Little Scythe, and they're not going to leave my shelf because I got 2 more on the way. I've got a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, right? So for me, I look at these games as they are games that get played depending on who is at the time playing games with me. We got a phone call.
Hey.
Beans and Dice Podcast. State your name. Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Chris from Texas. How y'all doing?
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hello, Chris.
Doing great. I love the discussion, guys.
Today on the show, we have Jamie from
Ami Bunnies. Ami Bunnies.
Just leave it at that.
I did. I stopped talking.
We find a way to shut Carlos up. Go ahead, Chris. It's your show. What you got going on, Chris?
Not too much. My son wanted to call in. He actually wanted to call in last week, and we were kind of busy with other things. And I said, why don't we call in next week? And that's today. So thought I would hand it over to him and let him talk for a minute.
Sweet. Awesome.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Awesome. What you got going on?
I'm just hanging out in my room.
You want to tell him about Smash Up and all the stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what have you been playing?
We just got the Smash Up Big Geeky box, and we got a bunch of factions.
Nice.
Nice. Which factions are you liking?
I really like the zombies. The zombies and another faction is really good.
I think that works for any game. If you can combine zombies with any other faction.
Zombie pirates, zombie dinosaurs, zombie fairies. Yeah, any zombie thing is cool.
Because I like the Tenacious Z's because they come out every turn.
Tenacious Z's? Is that like a Jack Black thing?
Yes, this is a Jack Black reference.
No.
That's awesome.
Nice.
No.
But yeah, that's the name of the card, but yeah.
So, how are you guys doing?
We are well. I got some games in with the family as well. I watch you and your dad talk about board games, and it gets me excited about playing games with my family. I got to teach my son, he's 13, how to play Nexus Ops. Nexus Ops. Tell your dad all about it. I think Restoration? No, Renegade or Restoration? Renegade. Renegade Games just came out with a 3rd edition of it. It's originally published through Avalon Hill, but I think this will be a great game for Pop and Tot to play because it plays well from 2 to 4 players in a area control, dudes on a map, just smash up fighting game.
I feel like this is like a revenge quest for Carlos to get.
Oh, yeah. If I can get his kid to make him buy games, because Chris is always making me buy games.
There you go.
Yeah, I think one of the cool things has been, for me, you know how we had the discussion about games that you get rid of and you wind up regretting later down the road. You're like, oh, man, I wish I hadn't gotten rid of that game. And so, it was Western Legends for you, Carlos, and then for me, it was the Smash Up Big Geeky box. And I probably had 30 or so factions at least in there, maybe 40.
Wow.
And then now I have the Big Geeky box back, which I got on Boardlandia, used. So I was able to get a bunch of those factions back that I used to play. But then the buyer's remorse, well, no, the seller's remorse, I should say, is like some of the factions are actually out of print now, which I don't know why AEG is not reprinting them, but like it's really hard to get the princess factions, the pretty princess. And then it's really hard to get It's Your Fault, which has like the dragons and the superheroes and the shark, you know, we do Sharknado. And so I was like, man, AEG, you guys got to reprint those expansions.
And also,
so that was one thing. Yeah, what you want to say?
also on the internet, the used copies of It's Your Fault is like $99.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Extortion.
Hiking it up. Yeah, it's in demand. Yeah.
The worst part is we know Chris will end up with it. Like, it'll just eat you up inside. You think about it at night, like how you had it, but then you lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can get it on the geek market at some point if somebody posts it. I don't know. I'm not going to pay $99 for it though. That's just outrageous.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Now, what about the Marvel smash up? So I've my older kids aren't into board gaming as much, but they are more Marvel. So anything Marvel, they're willing to give it a try. Have you heard or have you played anything about the Marvel version of Smash Up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love it. That's actually what got my son into Smash Up. So we had played Smash Up a little bit on the electronic version on Steam, and he really enjoyed it. And then I went out, since he liked it, and bought the Marvel Smash Up pack. And it's like, 8 factions, 4 good, 4 evil. And we just played that only. That's all we had. And we played that for a while. And then my son eventually got tired of just only having those, and he wanted more. That's when I went and got the big geeky box. But they're awesome. Like the Avengers are all 5s, and there's ways to get them back out of the discard pile, with actions. And they're awesome. And they all have unique abilities, each and every one of them. And then the other one that's really cool is the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. agents are like really weak, like low power, but then you can like spam them, kind of like robots, but they come out really fast. And I combined them with robots against my son one time, and they were super strong. It was like crazy amount of minions coming out with the 2 of those together.
Overrun.
And that's just 2 of the factions in there. They're all good.
Nice. I'm glad to see somebody enjoying Smash Up. I mean, this seems like it was a game that was obviously popular for a while there, but it's kind of seems like it's had gone out of the public eye for a while. It had kind of faded away. I know that when the big gut box and stuff came out, it found some new popularity again. But I just don't hear it played a whole lot. But I own probably about 15 factions now, so not nearly the 40 plus that you had, but enough that there's some mix and match and some fun to be had with it. So yep.
I need to get this back to the table. Yeah, I'm like you. I have the original box, and then I think I had the what's the insert company that kind of went bankrupt because the owner was
Broken Token.
Broken Token, yeah. I had the Broken Token insert, so I had filled that up, and then the big geeky box came out, and I was like, nope, not doing that. So I have probably 20 factions as well, and I
you fell for that trap with Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Yeah. I'm not doing that again. Not doing that again. Yeah. But no, I know I played this a couple times with my son, and he really enjoyed it. So I think it's one that I just need to like pull out and put on the table.
It's fun.
So he'll see it and go, oh, let's play that again. Type thing. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, good game.
Yeah, it's one that we played a lot during our thing as well on Tabletop Simulator. The only issue is the cards are hard to read, but it's a great game, especially quick to learn, quick to play.
Yeah, easy to teach. Yep.
Yeah, totally. And I think the Steam implementation is very good. The downside is there's not a ton of expansions for it, but there are I think 2 expansions you can buy for it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and this goes.
I was actually thinking. Go ahead.
No, you go. It's your call.
Well, I was just saying, I was thinking of you, Wayne, when I brought up Smash Up because you and your son, and I was like, I bet Wayne would like playing that with his son. That's all.
Yeah,
I think you guys would enjoy that.
I've played it at least once or twice with him. I just need to bust it out again. It kind of gets lost, but I think like Jamie speaking of your game, like Smash Up kind of has that asynchronous powers, right? But it's easy to learn because you just take 2 decks, you shuffle them together, and there's your powers, right? So
just play what you have. Yeah,
play what you have and read the cards and kind of follow along. So it's again one of those other games where it's very asynchronous. It changes every time you play it, but it's easy to learn and pick up.
Totally, 100%. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then in other news, I'm just going to give I know I've done it in the Discord already, but I'm going to give a shout out to Foundations of Metropolis. I think it's overshadowed by its huge brother, Foundations of Rome.
Yeah, prettier brother, I guess, but way
you
more
know, for good
expensive brother.
reason. Yeah, way more expensive, larger brother. But I will say I was extremely impressed. I've now played it 3 times. I played it with my next door neighbors, and they loved it. And so I think they did, Arcane Wonders did an amazing job creating a very high quality product with the same, obviously, rules from the original game, but in a really good price point of 40. I think it retails for 50, but I got it for 30 something, and everywhere I look online, it's in the 30s. It's not even something you can normally pay retail for. Like, you can find it easily for under $40.
Okay, I was seeing it for at that $50 price point. I got to do some more research. You almost had me. Yeah, you were posting up your pictures and talking about it, and it got me thinking about Foundations of Rome. So I popped over to see what the market is on that in the used market, and I went right back to
the cardboard version.
But
that's what's interesting. I wonder if like if the retail price of Foundation of Metropolis is $50 and it's already, you can readily find it for in the 30s. I wonder if it's because like the gamer market they all have their big copies, right? And where is that secondary market for people who are like, I'm not willing to spend $200 on Foundations of Rome, but I want this lighter game so bad that I'm going to pay 50 for it, right? Like that'd be interesting to see. Like, I like the game. I still think New York 1901 is good enough for me, right? I'm not going to buy either of them, but yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if Foundations of Rome is going to have the kind of success that Foundations of Metropolis is going to have the same success that Foundations of Rome did.
Will the volume of Metropolis be sufficient to make more money for Arcane Wonders than Foundations of Rome did with their high price?
You said that better than I did.
And in English this time.
Mira eso.
There we go. All right, Chris, you got anything else for us?
No, but I am going to post from Game Nerds that the product is $36.
There you go.
Foundations of Metropolis.
See, there you go, Carlos. Carlos will have it bought by midnight.
Clicking away before we're done. Yeah, there we go.
I'm doing better. I'm not buying everything. I'm adding it to the Christmas wish list, and we'll see if Santa does a good job.
Thanks for the call, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks, Chris, and Pop.
You too, guys.
Pop and Tot, thanks.
Pop and Tot.
Yep.
Check them out.
YouTube. Good night, Chris.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, guys.
Nice. Got a couple comments, and I'm also going to comment on a comment, but if you want to throw up a couple things that came up there.
So
in the chat.
some of the comments came through. Chad Stilson was in the chat. Chad says, do you find out that it is actually modern times as you play The Village?
Oh,
so like at what point does it become modern times with all those generations?
Yeah, I don't know. No, it really is just still ancient, like medieval times. So yeah,
they never make it to modern days.
No. You're still in the 1400s, basically. Edmund said no. It was Lean-Con, a small con in an international perspective. Yeah, it's amazing, Joe. Like so that con, like all the conventions around the world now that are gaming related. Like there's that Kickstarter for the Africon. Right, where it was like African board game convention. That that stuff's kind of cool. A fellow game designer, Chris Cafridi.
Yeah, an indie designer that's been on the show several times, friend of the show.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna bring him up. Jamie, you were talking about the hardest part about designing board games or publishing board games has to do with getting the art. And Chris, we met Chris at Prototype Day for Stonemaier Games in St. Louis.
Yep.
That's how we met him. He's joined us on the show many times. He went and taught himself how to draw through art classes so that he can do his own art
for his own games. Yeah.
And you can see the progress from his first games, the Gnome game. I'm trying to remember the Gnome Gardeners or Garden Gnomeners or
Nomadic
the Gnome games.
You've got
Nomadic Gardeners.
Nomadic Gardeners. You got it here somewhere.
And all the way up, like you can see his artwork like so much improving as he continues to hone his craft.
Cool.
Chris is a designer of the most recent expansion to Tapestry, the Fantasies and Futures expansion. I think it is.
Co-designer.
Title.
Yeah, I think that's close. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. And we
Yep,
got
Thanks for popping in the chat, Chris.
Chris Federspiel.
Oh, another Chris.
from the Tampa Gaming Guild.
If that is, is that like Federspiel's not the real last name, right? Because
I believe it is. Yeah.
yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
his real last name.
TGG.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
Tampa
wow.
Gaming Guild. Yep.
that's
Mhm.
amazing. But his last game has got the spiel in it. That's
So let's
amazing.
shout his out. His top 10 in order. So hegemony has to be hegemony has to
Yep.
be his number one. I'm
Yeah,
guessing
based
that's number
on
one.
what he said to us when he was on the
Exactly.
show.
So
Yeah.
there you go. So hegemony, hegemony, however you want to say it.
Hegemony.
There you go. Feast for Odin, number 2. Europe Universalis, The Price of Power, number 3. Warlord Saga of the Storm, 4. Root is right there,
there you go.
5.
Yep.
Fox Experiment, 6. Viticulture, 7. Frosthaven, 8. Marvel Champions, 9. And Shadows of Brimstone, number 10. So that's Chris's current list for the year top 10. And I was going to hit on this a little bit, so I said I was going to make a comment about a comment, I guess a comment about Chris's comment, but it also ties back to Jamie's question, so I hadn't answered yet as far as
gaming and waste and stuff. Yeah.
Right. So, you asking about the complexity and gamers who want to play heavier games, and my answer, I guess, is that luckily our hobby, we're blessed enough with our hobby right now that. Oh, Nick's going to interrupt me, but I'll
go ahead.
finish my thought here. We're blessed enough with the hobby right now that there is getting to be a large enough player base, a large enough dedicated crowd that you're going to find people at all different levels. And I'm going to cut my thought a little bit short here because we already are at 10:30 Eastern here, and then I know Nick had messaged he wanted to get in, so he's on the phone. Give me 1 second, Nick. We'll jump over to you in just a second. But I was just at Dice Tower Retreat 2 weekends ago, and had just spent 3 days out there playing games. And it actually also gets back to Chris's comment there on his list is Fox Experiment. There were a couple of gamers there, a couple of ladies who were from Phoenix, Arizona, I believe. It was Phoenix. But anyway, they had flown out. We were on Saturday, so they had been gaming for 3 or 4 days already. And they said that they've been coming to the Dice Tower retreats for 6 or 7 years. They were regulars out there. They had pulled off the shelf because they liked the cover art. They liked the way the game looked. The Fox Experiment. And I kind of told this story a little bit last week, but they did not know how to play. So they had a teacher wanted sign up. I had never played, and I was there with William at the convention, and he had never played either. But it was a game that I was interested in. I'd seen a couple of years ago, this game was all over the place. It was all the rage. Everybody was playing the Fox Experiment. I said, that's a game that I really, really want to play. So, again, long story short, we convinced them to let us sit down, and they were like, all right, well, help us learn this game. So I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at learning and teaching games. So I grabbed the rule book, pretty meaty rule book. I get it was probably about a quarter of the way through the rules, and one of the girls sitting across from me, she rolled her eyes and she threw her head back and just went, ah! I mean, just audibly, like a loud grunt, and she's like, I have no idea what we're doing. She goes, I'm not interested in this game anymore. We thought it looked cute. We thought it looked cool. This game is way over our heads. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not married to this. If you guys want to just put this away. So real quick, they packed it up. They asked me to go find a game off the shelf. They were like, find us something we can play in an hour or less, something that we can learn, in 5 or 10 minutes, something that, you've played before. And it brings me back to Res Arcana that I was teaching Carlos and we were playing for his first turn tonight. But I pulled this game off the shelf. We taught it. We played it in like 45 minutes. My point is that there's a crowd out there for everything, Jamie. I'm not going to lie to you. If you ask me personally, I am one of those, and against some of the things the other guys have said and some of the people in the chat have said, Chris in the chat said about you need to mix in lighter games with heavier games. I and Jim Odak and several other people in our gaming group, I don't agree with that at all. I could play 3-hour game after 3-hour game after 3-hour game, make my brain burn, make me exhausted by the end of the day. I don't personally need those lighter games. I play them because people want to play them, and sometimes it's good to mix those in between heavier games, but give me big, heavy, meaty games pretty much any day of the week. Now, I'm not going TI4. I'm not talking 8 or 9 or 10 hours in one game. But give me 2 or 3 hours of a good brain burning, and then I'll move on to a different topic. Some different mechanisms. Throw those in. My mind will reset. It'll refresh. I'll jump into another one. So, again, I'm not saying anything for or against, but I guess my point is that our audience here, the gaming crowd right now, our hobby has gotten to the point where there are enough people in all the different niches, or in most of the niches now, that there's tons of people who like light games. There's tons of people who like medium games. There's tons of people who like heavy games. And so, I think there's definitely room for everything in there. So my short story long. There you go.
Like 2 hours later.
2 hours later. There we go. But Nick is on the phone. Nick Oben, are you still there? Or did I put you to sleep?
2 hours later.
There you go.
Nick Oben.
I'm waiting for the state your name and tell us where you're calling from.
Oh,
State your name. Tell us where you're calling from.
Oh, hey, happy Thursday, guys. This is Nick from Wesley Chapel.
Hey, Nick, how are you?
That was long story medium, Rob. I liked it.
Long story medium? All right. Yeah, I didn't shorten it. It was medium. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm doing well, man. It's been way too long since I called in. How you guys doing?
Been a little
Good,
while.
man.
Been a while. Doing good.
Doing well.
Yeah. What's funny? I was talking to Wayne at DragonCon. Oh, little tip there. Went to DragonCon. That was fun. We're talking to him there, and it's funny. Axe throwing was off for the summer, and that was like my routine. Is I would get out of axe throwing and call you guys. And then the irony is that I haven't had axe throwing, so I've actually been available, but then just like I'm out of my routine. Like I do other stuff. I'm whatever. But no, it's good to be back on the show. And hello, Jamie. That the game you showed earlier looked really cool. It was fun.
Thank you.
Rob is, of course, wrong, and there needs to be light games thrown in at all times at some point. Although actually, I'm with you. Actually, I joke. I agree. I'll happily play a 3-hour game as long as we've got the 3 hours. The 1 hour game is that really nice spot though of like, well, we don't have 3 hours,
Sure.
and I want to play a game. And that's good. But like my Maryland group, they'll end every game day or every game night with nothing but like super light party games, as if that's like a tradition. Like we've done all the thinking we can do today. Now it's time to just play Green Team Wins, right? Which is nothing wrong with Green Team Wins. It's a fun game, right? But it's like, some people think you have to switch to a lighter game or something because we can't think anymore. And I'm with Robin in that I never actually hit that point. If I've got the 3 hours, I'll just play another 3 hour game. That's fun. But yeah. Anyways, that's not what I'm talking about. It was good. What's going on with me? I did go to DragonCon. First year at DragonCon. Wayne was amazing as a tour guide and kind of like pseudo host. So Wayne, thank you very much for making the trip better for us. It was a lot of fun. The actual tour guide services you did, we walked through all 3 hotels of the connected hotels and learned about the sky bridges. That was definitely very handy. And it's funny how you get used to the layout. Once you get used to the layout, you'll realize it's not complicated, not as complicated as it first seems. But when you're first walking in and there's 1,000 people on every floor in every direction, and every direction seems like there's something going on over there, it is easy to get lost. It is easy to not really see the method to the madness. So yeah, that was fun. Thanks.
So Nick,
for,
this was your first DragonCon. This was your first big convention. And so for those out there, DragonCon is in Atlanta. It's 75,000 people over 5 days. So it's Gen Con big, easy.
It's huge.
Yeah. How was it? Just completely overwhelming, or did you kind of like, okay, this isn't that bad?
Honestly, it was. So you have to roger out that you're not going to do even a fraction of what's available. And beyond that, you're not even going to do all the things you plan to do, right? And so if you're okay with that, then it was fine. At no time did I feel like, oh no, there's too much. I just knew that there was a lot, and I wasn't going to do it all, not even close. Meanwhile, I did find that the things we wanted to do were very approachable, were very doable, right? I don't think there was a single thing that we really wanted to get in line for and do that it turned out we couldn't, or it filled up or whatever. And that's a kind of a testament to the scope of the interest and how many different things are there going on at a different time, that even though you've got 75,000 people there, and yes, there are some things which are clearly more popular than others, there's so many things that at any given time you can go do something that you want to do, right? And I liked that aspect of it. Instead of being overwhelmed, I was pleasantly surprised at just how approachable it was, where, okay, plan A might be to go check out the Hobbits. That was the one thing. We went to go, there was the one panel where multiple of the Lord of the Ring actors, including Elijah Wood, was going to be there or whatever, right? And so we went to go check it out an hour before, and it was the lines had already formed, and the kicker was, if you wanted to get in line, it was out the door, and I mean physically out the door to the outside. And it's well, no, we're not going to wait in line outside in Atlanta at 2:30 in the afternoon. Thank you very much, right? So that one thing, it was one thing. It was all right, no, that's too popular for us. We just won't do that. And instead, we went and did something else, and it was great. It was totally fun, right? So that part of it was good. We didn't do crazy the crazy 3 a.m. raves. I mean, we kind of called it a night on the, I guess, quote unquote early side most evenings. So that I think helped. We didn't walk away from the weekend completely destroyed and being oh my God, every day was long, every day was full, but it kind of was just a weekend in Atlanta, a weekend away,
Nice.
Which was nice. So for a first con, we paced ourselves well. We dabbled in a lot of things, but didn't walk away being oh my God, that was too much, which is good. But
yeah, nice.
definitely interested in going back. I know that, and for anyone listening that's interested, the ticket price goes up soon. I think it's the lowest it's ever going to be. It's $100 a ticket, which is free, right? You're talking about a 5-day convention for 100. The ticket itself is just I'm amazed at how cheap it was. Even if you wait, I didn't buy my ticket for the 2024 one until a few months ago, and it was so I guess at that point full price. I was surprised. I think it only gets as expensive as $150, $175, maybe. I forget. It wasn't that bad for a 5-day huge convention, but you can get it right now for $100. And then the price goes up to $150.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Dragon Con is completely different than Gen Con. Gen Con is a gaming convention. Dragon Con is very much a geek lifestyle convention. But what I love about Dragon Con is you pay that $100 or $150, and there is almost nothing else that costs more. Every event is just part of your ticket. Whereas Gen Con, you buy your Gen Con ticket, and then you have to have all these additional tickets to do additional events or pay generic tickets. So you have to pay, you get nickeled and dimed for all these little things. At Dragon Con, there's really only a handful of events that will cost you extra money. Which there's a writer's workshop where you're literally going to be 40 people in a room with Brandon Sanderson and get a 5-hour writing clinic from him. That'll cost you extra. But going and get anything signed by him, or seeing him talk, or going to see Jim Butcher talk, or going to see, the Star Wars cast, or going to the video game room or the paint and tank room is all part of the price, which I love. Yeah. But it can get some of the lines can get really long. It's I'm not going to wait in a 2-hour line to go see the Hobbits, because I have the benefit. I stay in a host hotel. So a lot of those, like the Hobbits doing their hour-long talk about Lord of the Rings, is also broadcast to the hotel room. So if I don't want to wait in that line, I can just go back to my hotel room and watch it live on my TV. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, it's fun.
And then for those into the geek culture, you can certainly spend a lot of money at Dragon Con. There's stores on every floor of every hotel. And then there's a lot of celebrities that show up, which is a big deal. That's a big thing for cons. And Dragon Con does draw a bunch of folks. I already mentioned the Hobbits. Nathan Fillion was there. Alan Tudyk from both of them from Firefly and other things. But then those, if you want to do the picture or get something signed, you got to pay extra for that. But that's normal con stuff. But you got a big room of talent, and I did like how they did that, where they're they basically, there's no set schedule, it looked like, which is cool. The Dragon Con just says they encourage all of the celebrities to spend as much of the con in the what was it called, the Hall of Fame or something.
Hall of Fame, yeah, Hall of Fame, yeah.
Yeah, where they're going to have a dedicated spot, and it's you kind of walk through the Hall of Fame, and you have a chance to see 100 celebrities of whoever's happens to be there at the time. And again, the con encourages them to spend as much time as possible if they can, but then they take breaks. But they're working it, of course. For every hour that they spend in there, they're probably making decent money just standing there to take pictures.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, 'cause some of the celebrities, I think, like for example, what's the guy named on Star Trek: Brave New Worlds, and he was on. Oh my God, he plays Christopher Pike on Strange New Worlds, and he was on Hell on Wheels. I forget his name. Anyway, Anson Mount, very, not super famous actor, but pretty famous, and obviously Star Trek. I think his signature is like $100, $80, and so if he sits there for an hour inside and a couple of hundred signatures, it's a decent chunk of change that these guys are making, and I'm sure Nathan Fillion was $100 a signature, type thing. So.
Yeah, no doubt. But no, it was fun. I will say I haven't bought my ticket for 2025 yet, because I will say that if I can't somehow weasel my way into a host hotel, it's gonna be tricky for me to actually do it again, just because, and this sounds kind of silly, but it's like I've already done the Dragon Con where I had to take a train to Dragon Con.
Right.
And I will say that definitely, I have to imagine the experience is radically different, where if you want to, after you arrive at your hotel, you don't need to leave that hotel until Monday when you fly back home. Right? And it's just a different vibe, a different experience versus, so Carlos and Rob, I stayed in a hotel. It was under a mile away, but it was a mile away. And so to get there, it's a 2-block walk to the Atlanta train system, which is a great train system. Love it. Actually, I'm really glad that I got this experience. I like the experience I got. Actually, I'd almost go as far as to say I recommend people trying Dragon Con this way, because it kind of forces you to visit Atlanta,
right?
Not just Dragon Con.
Yeah, Rob and I stayed with family when we went.
Yeah,
I have family in Atlanta, so we had to drive in each day, which actually was not as difficult as I thought. The parking garage system in Atlanta was great, but then we also rode the MARTA, that
Love
Atlanta,
Metro Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority.
Yeah, underground train like subway, and took that to go catch a ball game. We caught a ball game at the new Battery Park, where they have the Braves at. So we got to experience all of Atlanta.
Go to the varsity, do all kinds of all the downtown stuff.
Yeah, I think there's the 3 or 4 main hotels, and there's 2 or 3 adjacent hotels. There's about 6 hotels around that downtown area that if you get into any of those, you would enjoy Dragon Con even more.
Now what about you didn't talk too much, Nick, about the gaming aspect, right? You talk about the geeky piece. I know I was disappointed in the lack of the gaming piece. Did you see gaming? Did you go to the game hall? Did you experience anything to do with gaming?
Yeah, so Wayne, as part of his, I think this was on day 2 of his tour guide extravaganza, walked me over to the gaming hall. It is in a separate building, right? So it's kind of funny. It's in this, it's in the America's March, right? Mm-hmm. It's in a different building apart from what most people consider to be the main part of Dragon Con. But the space that they dedicate to gaming is huge. It's a whole on extra area, but it's clearly not the focus of the populace that's there. And so while there were probably 1,000 people there when we walk in, maybe even a few more, it feels like a sideshow, right? It feels like kind of this is an extra thing that people didn't really come here for. Now, of course, if you did come there for, there's plenty of room for you. They got tables, they got games, and there was a neat little painting workshop that you could just stand in line and learn to paint a mini. Then if you wanted, they had one thing I will say, if I had planned better or had a little more interest in, as far as the timing wise, they were running multiple times throughout the day. They were running 2-hour long and 4-hour long one-shot role-playing scenarios, where it's you can just stand in line, and then you get in line and they hand you your character, and then someone runs the game, and it's kind of like an experience. You get to do a little role-playing and basically do, I don't know if it was all just D&D or different systems, but it was every 2 hours they were running another game, and it was like a big group. So you would do like, you're talking like 50 people in line. So I have to imagine they actually put some effort into that to try to make that work, right? It's not just like, oh, you're going to start rolling dice with 3 other people. One of you is a cleric and one of you is a fighter. I assume they're making the game a little more grandiose, where it's like, all right, you guys are like townspeople and you got to go pretend like you need help or something. I don't know. I didn't stay to watch it, but I just saw a bunch of people standing in line and I read a little bit about it. That looked like it could be neat from an experience standpoint. But again, you have to be willing to kind of devote. They had a 2-hour thing and a 4-hour thing. So you have to be okay with just like, that's what we're doing right now, you know? But yeah, I mean, DragonCon is not a board gaming convention. It is a geek convention that certainly has a board gaming area. But I did not do any gaming. Didn't play a single game. But I guess this is a big thing. This is the long story medium. I didn't play a single board game at DragonCon, and I'm okay with that. Right?
Yep.
Because like it's not why you're there. Right? It's just not. Like if you go to DragonCon, you're not doing it because I want to play a board game. Right? Or even me calling into a board game show. Like, that's not why you go. So, but there you go.
Well, thank you.
That's
good for the folks at home to know, because I know it comes up a lot here on Beans and Dice at DragonCon. I know Wayne's a big proponent of it. Has a group that goes every year, but getting a different perspective from other gamers so that other folks can make educated decisions on where to spend their convention dollars.
Yeah, and I think it's, if you want to do nothing but play board games, then there's BGG and Dice Tower events. That's really where you need to go, right? If you want to have the spectacle of board games and the craziness of board games and the giantness of board games, then Gen Con is the way to go. If you just a nerd and you want to do anything nerdy, geeky, fun, like the entire spectrum of the world of geekdom, Dragon Con's where you want to go.
But also, I think, and this is my limited experience here, Dragon Con After Dark leans heavy into a fair bit of the party atmosphere that can come with some of that geekdom, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah, I think
you've got your Star Wars themed, ravers going on, and you got your the Ball of the Goblin King. We went to that. That was fun. So it was a 80s themed dance party, basically, which is great on face value. But then it was all themed out to be from the Goblin King from Labyrinth, from the movie Labyrinth. Yeah. So there was a whole bunch of people in cosplay there as Sarah, a whole bunch of people in cosplay there as the Goblin King, and then every character in between. And that was a lot of fun.
Yep. And I think I think I've talked Nick to the Hyatt the Hyatt, which is, if you've seen the inside of the Hyatt in Atlanta, you've seen it 30 times because it's been in a zillion movies,
TV shows,
Loki, the Hunger Games, a bunch of Marvel stuff. And so like that entire, like when you look up in the Hyatt, it's just amazing view. But then imagine partying there all night long with 1,000 other people in a dance party, in cosplay, and you're there in this place that has been in a million movies. And so that's kind of like the late night of Dragon Con.
Yeah. So I mean that aspect of it, I think, needs to be taken into consideration. That makes it, I think, significantly different from other cons that I've gone to, where there's a daytime feel that feels like if you've gone to Comic-Con, or if you've gone to MegaCon in Orlando, or if you any of those other cons, the feel is actually not too dissimilar. It's just a slightly grander scale. But then there's also literally every night, starting at 3 a.m., a dance party in multiple of the hotels, and it's literally on the schedule from 3 to 6 a.m., and then they're posting which restaurants open early enough in the morning, not for people who actually care about breakfast, right? But for people who are still awake because they were out raving until 6 a.m. It's just that kind of you've walked into something when the official Dragon Con app is like, let me find you the breakfast place, not because you need breakfast, but because you're still awake, after raving. it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
Good time.
I'm kind of sharing. If anyone who's watching live, you can kind of see some photos I'm showing. You can see like there's the Batman movie, and like you can see this. The Marriott it's the Marriott, not the Hyatt. Excuse me. Is just it's an amazing location, and it's been in a million different movies. So it's kind of cool to be able to like hang out there and party and drink and dance and what I really love too is even though there's celebrities there and you think they're unapproachable, in a 4 or 5 day period, I'm in an elevator every time with a celebrity or just walking next to somebody, and they kind of just walk amongst the people, and they kind of know that like we're all just kind of nerds and we're all hanging out, and they know that we're not going to bother them. So it's kind of cool. I feel like sometimes they feel like they can relax and kind of just be themselves, kind of walking around the con. So
yeah. Nick, I love this for you. I do.
Thank you.
Not for you, Carlos.
I look good in my Spider-Man outfit. I'll tell you what.
I saw the pictures. Nicely done. Yeah.
I know we're getting up on 11 o'clock here, but last thing as far as gaming does go, I admit the summer was bad. Things were crazy busy. But tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, we're doing Friday the 13th Frosthaven.
Frosthaven, Friday the 13th. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'll do some kind of spooky setup or whatever for our Frosthaven.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe we'll just die. I don't know.
Yeah, that's scary enough.
That's not unusual, but yeah.
Or even worse, you can open boxes you shouldn't be getting into on accident, like you did last time.
Oh yeah, just moving ahead.
Yeah.
Or playing scenarios we shouldn't have probably quite been to yet.
That's scarier.
Yeah, there we go. Whoops.
Yeah. Very good. All right, but anyways, that's all I got for you guys.
Thanks. Hi, Mr. Oben. Thanks for the Dragon Con update. Appreciate you.
See you tomorrow night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Dude, Dragon Con, that sounds huge.
Yeah.
It's
3 a.m.
You've been there.
I will not be awake.
Yeah, we didn't do the 3 a.m. thing, but we've been there.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my.
I think we were out by like 8.
Yeah.
we were headed back for dinner
Working all
and
day,
sleep.
eat and go to bed. Yeah.
I'm hitting my 24th year. I think my wife's gonna hit 15 next year, something like that. Some crazy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Got some. Let's catch up with the comments in the chat, and then we'll wrap up the evening here. Let's see. Chad Stilson in the chat says, "Sorry, that was a deep cut M. Night Shyamalan joke about the village." When he said, when I read this, I'm like, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
How did I miss that village joke about being modern times?
Yeah.
Chad, good job, Chad. And Chad continues with the mispronunciations of board games.
Hegemony.
I read that. I'm thinking History of the World, Mel Brooks' History of the World, Count de Monet.
Okay. Chris, get us on this feather spiel there. So Feather Game is his last name. So cool. That's neat. Yeah.
And that's everyone. That's it.
We got a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask Jamie one last question because you demoed at Dice Tower and BGG and then at Gen Con.
Yes.
Give us 5 minutes of your experience at either getting a booth, running demos at small big cons.
You heard about this giant Dragon Con experience and all the vendors and 75,000 people. Like, how do you decide where to put your money on where to get a booth and where to do your demos?
Well, we definitely were uninformed and had no idea what we were doing. We were going out and trying to just bring it out to the public for the first time. We were trying to get playtesters that weren't our normal gaming group. We needed to see how people read the rules and interacted with the game when we weren't exactly playing ourselves. So I happen to be in Orlando, and my artist happens to be in Dallas, which is where BGG and Dice Tower are. So when we did all our research, we were like, oh, hey, these conventions are in our hometowns. Maybe we can sign up for them. So we found out how much a booth cost, and they were in our budget. It's a few $100s, less than $1,000. And, it's a 10 by 10 space for us to put down a table, and we didn't know what we were going to get.
Let me just say real quick, just to don't cut you off your thought there, but how lucky you were if you really didn't know to be in those areas where BGG Con is and Dice Tower Con is, two of the biggest gaming conventions in the country. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we looked at a bunch of other ones after the fact, and we're like, yeah, it seems like these two are the place to be. Like, if you're not going to Gen Con, these two are the top other two to go to. So we were really pleased about that. The process to get in there was very easy. Both BGG and Dice Tower, they have very different processes, but both help you get to there and find your way and maneuver around it. The only problem is, like, we don't know what we're doing. So together we're sitting there, okay, how do we design a booth? Like, what do we need to do there? Because we know we want to have a table to have people play games, but we don't have banners. We don't have, big artwork and stuff. So we just brainstormed a bunch of things. We're like, all right, we'll print this and print that and put a table topper on and do that. And watching our booth evolve over the last 2 years has actually been a lot of fun, because by the end of BGG Spring this year, we had a separate side table with a bunch of little platforms on it. And my wife has made crochet versions of all of the characters. And so we stood those up. And it's just, the advancement has been great. But then Gen Con is just a whole nother beast. There was no way that we would get a booth there because we're nobody. And they're not going to look at you. But they have this event called First Exposure Playtest Hall, where nobodies can go to get their games tested and played as long as they're not published. So we went there and met some great people there, both other designers and gamers themselves. And it was a great experience to interact with the gaming community in a way that I hadn't yet to that point. Because like I said, our experience with gaming has always been at home with our tabletop group on Tabletop Simulator. So going to the convention was the first time that I'm like, wow, these are the people that are really into the board game scene. And there was so much to learn about everything. And it's just great meeting the people, seeing their enthusiasm for both the genre in general, and then the few people that got excited about Bunnies too. It really lifted us up and made us feel like we had something that was worthwhile, that the community would embrace, even if it's only a small fraction of it. And that's what we really needed to keep the project going for these years.
That's pretty cool. And so going forward, do you think that, like, going to BGG, a con like BGG or Dice Tower, has been more beneficial than Gen Con? Or
it definitely has, because we've gotten a lot more fans, I guess I'd say, from the smaller ones, because we have a booth and people can come and they can play the game when they're walking by, as you did. Right. You just walked, saw that our table was there, it was empty, so you sat down and played a game. At Gen Con, at First Exposure Playtest Hall, you have scheduled 2-hour blocks. And when you get there, you're going to play one game in that 2-hour block. So I had 4 scheduled blocks. So I got 4 games at Gen Con. I can get more than 4 games in a single day at either of the other 2 conventions. Plus, at Gen Con, I was by myself. At the other 2, I have Darcy with me. And so if you're in the middle of a game and somebody else comes up and says, oh, hey, what's that? That looks interesting. I can pull out our other copy and say, let's go find a table and we'll go play too.
Nice.
And so that's definitely the advantage of the smaller ones. Plus, Gen Con is really about finding the big games and participating in the events and buying a lot of stuff. BGG and Dice Tower are about playing games.
Right.
So while they have the booths available and they have a very small marketplace for you to buy games, that's not what that event is for. They both have enormous libraries where you're supposed to go there and you either bring your own games or check theirs out, but you just go play. And you play your own games, you play with strangers, you play with your game group, and you just enjoy the weekend. And so that's really the fun part about those.
Cool.
Now, okay, so I'm curious about BGG Con. I know we're holding you late here. We're after 11.
Fine.
Because BGG Con is another gamers convention. My understanding, though, is BGG Con is more family friendly than even the Dice Tower is. My understanding is that the experience there is there's actually families there, kids, and I got 5.
Okay. Well, there's
what'd you see?
BGGs.
Yeah.
there's two different BGGs. There's one in the spring
and fall.
in May called BGG Spring. That is the family-friendly one with the kids and everything. Okay. There's one in November that's BGG Con. That one's more equal to Dice Tower. I think Dice Tower restricts.
Yeah,
well,
it's like under.
They have
under
restricted
10,
sales.
Under 8, they can't.
So they only have so many tickets for kids, and then I think it's like under 8 or something. Just you don't even bring them.
Not allowed.
But
And then
BGG
under 14
is definitely kid friendly.
Kid friendly. Okay, cool.
Like the very kid that played Bunnies was a 3-year-old.
Nice.
So you targeted it for spring, which is more in line with your audience that you're trying to hit.
It just happened to be the schedule because our first event was an online play test and with other developers, and the feedback that we got there was actually crushing because it was a bunch of designers playing our game that wanted to look for the flaws in your game and point out what's wrong with it, as well as trying to help you make a better game. But being my first experience, it was just like, oh my gosh, I've got a piece of trash. I don't know, but at that point we've already committed to
somebody
BGG
told you your
Spring
baby
and
was
Dice Tower
ugly.
East.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, we're going to these conventions and we'll see what happens. But the feedback we got at BGG Spring that first year was phenomenal. And the father of that 3-year-old is one of our biggest fans right now. He left a glowing review for us on BGG.com, and
cool.
so yeah.
I'm glad
part
to hear.
Of our story now.
I wanted to hear that firsthand experience because I am curious about that BGG family friendly version because I do have smaller kids.
Yeah, it's great. But like the other ones we mentioned, the focus is to go there, use their library, and just play games together. So whether you're there with kids or not, there's plenty of adults there too. And I've seen a lot of parents play games and then let their kids go off and do children's activities. I saw a game of like 20 kid werewolf, and I know one of the kids, and their parents were off playing side. So I think there are ways to enjoy the weekend with your kids, but also let the kids do kid things with other kids and enjoy adult things for yourself. And as I mentioned, there is a small like 30 booth exhibition hall for you to enjoy as well.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for sticking around. You stayed all the way to the end and some.
Yeah, a little bit extra.
Achievements
thank
there.
You for having me.
I'm going to hit up the how to find you.
Yeah,
and,
remind the folks at home how we can learn more about Bunnies.
Yes,
it.
Bunnies. You just go to the website amibunnies.com, and there's a link up top that will get you to our email list, which will help us a lot in trying to bring this into reality.
All right, we got links in the Discord. You can find them at amibunnies.com, AMOEBUNNIES for our podcast listeners. It's been a great show to have you. Thank you, Jamie. Stay on as we wrap it up and shut down the stream. Folks, we'll be back next week for more board game content, more phone calls from you guys at home to talk about how you've been gaming. I'm Carlos.
I'm Rob.
I'm Wayne.
I'm Jamie.
There you go.
Thank you all for watching. Have a good night.
Night, everybody. Push that button.
Working on it.
Thanks for watching the Beans and
Shut that
Dice
cat up.
podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Springfield, Ohio. Oh, no.
Just for Mike. Just for Mike.